This lesson discusses branching with continue, break, and go to. Topics include: what is the continue command? What is the break command? What is the go to command? How would continue, break, and go to be used in a website? And is there controversy over the use of these three commands? Looking now at our code example, you can see that we have 3 for each loops starting on lines 5, 14, and 24. But inside the loop, we're using different commands to alter the flow of logic within the loop. We have an array assigned on line 3 with a series of values. We are using the modulus operator, which is division by a number, giving you only the remainder after the division to check for certain things. On line 7, we're using modulus 2. What happens then is the number is continuously divided by 2 and only the result is returned. In the case of modulus 2, we will have either 0 or 1 as a result. 1 will be interpolated as Boolean true. 0 is interpolated as Boolean false. Accordingly, the net result then is that line 7 will check for an odd number. If true, it continues. Otherwise, the code on line 10 is executed. Thus, the operation of the continue command is to skip intervening lines of code and continue on the next iteration of the loop. The break command and the go to command, in contrast, will break out of the loop or jump out of the loop and not continue with the remainder of the loop. So on line 16, we're checking to see if the modulus 3 is 0. The net result then will be that number is evenly divisible by 3. We save the value, break out of the loop, we then echo the result. Likewise, on line 26, we're checking to see a number that's evenly divisible by 4. Instead of using break, we're going to use goto instead. The way goto operates is that you specify a label. The label is then indicated by any string followed by a colon, as you can see on line 31. You'll notice that in a previous lesson, we mentioned that the for each loop iterates through an array from beginning to end. Accordingly, by using break or goto, you can use a for each loop, but you do not have to go through the entire array. Let's now look at the result of this by moving to the browser. So here's example 1. Even numbers, 34, 56, 78, 90, 114, using continue. Using break, we determined the first number that was evenly divisible by 3. Using goto, we jumped out of the loop, finding the first number evenly divisible by 4. Now, there is some controversy surrounding the use of these three commands. Let's have a look at another example. Again, you will recall we're using the modulus operation to determine whether a number is evenly divisible by 2 or not. In other words, is it even or odd? What the continue command does is it skips the intervening lines of code and continues on the next iteration of the loop. The argument against using these commands is that by simply restructuring the logic of your code, you can not only produce more efficient code, but you can duplicate exactly the same results. So you'll notice that on line 10, we check to see the result of modulus 2. On line 19, we simply say not modulus 2. The not command is the exclamation point. It precedes parentheses, so we have a comparison expression which is then negated, and we end up with a negative result, in which case the code is executed. Looking at the browser and the second example, you can see we end up with exactly the same results, but without using the continue command. The controversy still rages on, however, because you'll notice that there's no efficient substitute for break or goto. What you would need to do in a structured programming environment would be to set a flag and use a while loop instead of a for each loop if you wanted to organize your code following structured programming principles. However, the jury is still out, the debate continues, and it's time for review. So what is the continue command? The continue command is used to skip a block of code but continue inside the loop. What is the break command? The break command is used to break out of a loop. What is the goto command? The goto command is used when you want to force a jump to a specific place within the program. How would continue, break, and goto be used in a website? They can be used in some cases to simplify your code. Is there controversy over the use of these three commands? There's many critics of the commands. Many claim that you could use structured programming principles to achieve the same results, but the debate continues to this day. This concludes our discussion of continue, break, and go to.